Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's vOLTHA TST. Thanks for joining. And as usual, the call is public and recorded and will be published on YouTube. So please be mindful of the information you share with everyone. So first of all, I want to give an update to everybody about the Helm 3 and Kubernetes 118 update that we are providing before the release of vOLTHA 2.4. We have now, thanks to Matteo and David, upgraded all the ONF test pods to Kubernetes 118 3 based on Rancher. And so all the tests are now running on Helm 3 and Kubernetes 118. The update was successful, and we're seeing successful runs of the 2.4 tests on these new Helm 3 and Kubernetes 118 based pods. So we're pretty confident about the status of things with the updated infrastructure components. As of yesterday, we also merged a patch on kind vOLTHA that defaults to Helm 3 and Kubernetes 118.5. The Helm 3 actually was merged last week. The Kubernetes 118.5 was merged yesterday. So as of today, if you do a pull of kind vOLTHA, it will deploy 118.5 and all the Helm charts to Helm 3. So the upgrade can be considered done. We're still watching the tests on Jenkins. In the vOLTHA 2.x tests here, there's a few failure on master, and like here a couple of failures, but this one for 2.4 on Flex is very good, and the community pods show that the GPON for the Deutsche Telekom workflow is also passing very well, and the master and 2.4 on the XGS PON pass very well. So we are confident on the current status. We'll probably spend some time looking at these tests today with the ONF team, but if all goes well, we are very, very close at releasing 2.4. Matteo, David, you guys want to give any other update on this move?
I think you covered everything. All of our infrastructure is now running on Kubernetes 118 and Helm 3. And the good news is that we had no disruption in the migration.
Yeah. And as you guys can see, we also successfully integrated the Turk Telecom sanity test on 2.4 on Flex. This job specifically. And you can see it's some fairly basic tests that we have done. Specifically, we have done basically a sanity end-to-end test with HSIA, VOD, and voice over IP, and a multicast test. And these are included in the 2.4 release. So this is very good news, and we managed to get it in. The other thing that we managed to get in since last week was also finally the complete in-band workflow. So on the ONF demo pod, the OLT actually works in band and is managed in band. And as you can see, there's basically no difference between the tests that are run on the OLT in band and OLT out of band. So we have hit the required test for 2.4 for this. Something else that I want to mention is that also the scale pod was moved to Helm 3 and Kubernetes 118.5. But we're going to take care of the scale on the scale and the BBSIM brigade. So that's that. Okay. Any questions before we move forward? Any question related to Helm 3 or Kubernetes 118? No? Okay. Then, if not, I'd like to give the floor to Andre from the reply team that is working on A4, that has a proposal and a JIRA ticket specifically to talk about static application security testing. This was a topic that we discussed last week, but I want to bring it up this week too, in order to make sure that Andrei covers it and gives an overview to everybody, and any comments are addressed before we go and actually do the implementation of this. Andrei, floor is yours. If you want to share the screen, you can also do so.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly fine.
Thank you. Yes, so that the security checks for the code, or static security checks, are coming as a requirement from the DT side right now, but it's also a generally good approach or policy to have those checks enabled, because they so we already have them enabled for internal DT repositories, and they're pretty good in finding out possible security leaks, which we already fixed. So for the community repositories, we also suggest to use them, because they are not expensive in terms of like execution time, but the outcome is quite good, quite helpful. So we can use it then for future fixes and tickets that we could discover. So the suggestion is to enable Golang, GoSec security testing tool, which is like a pretty basic tool, but still finds some problems. Unfortunately, I'm not really familiar with Python and Java languages, but the suggestion is to use for Python Bandit, and for Java FindSegBugs tool that probably does the same job. So the implementation details we already discussed with Andrea, that we, I will do this. I will create Docker files for each language with those tools installed in the Docker files. And then those files will be, of course, published to the community Docker Hub repository. And then once the new code is pushed, those checks will be triggered as a part of the common CI pipeline. And the problems will be just reported. So this will not fail the CI pipeline. So this will be probably yellow or something like this. So then we can, because it's like, of course, initial start, we probably would have some problems, would see some problems. And for that, we would need probably to create follow-up tickets to resolve them. And then after some time, I would also propose to enable it like to fail the pipeline when such problems are discovered. So as you can see in the screen, the affected repositories which I like, or like, let's say DT is using, is also proposed to use for security checks. But of course, if you would like to also to have other repositories under those checks, I can also do this.
Thanks, Andre. Just a couple of comments from my side, then I'll open the floor to everybody. As Zach said in the JIRA, I think that for Go, if you're looking just specifically at GoSec, you might just want to enable it in our already existing linter. It might be a parameter more in the existing Docker file. So that's something that you might want to take a look at. And well, these you need to run them as Zach suggested. So I would suggest to take a look at this and see some of his suggestion. In general, I would also, as a comment, say that here, if we do it for some, it doesn't make too much sense. I think we should enable it for all of the existing repos that are touched by the deployment, meaning that, for example, for the applications of ONOS, like Kafka ONOS, SADIS, and OLT, while you do it, I would do it also for the remaining ones, such as multicast, IGMP proxy, AAA, DHCP-L2 relay. Even though DT doesn't use them, they're part of the upstream. So while we are at it, I think it would be best to have also them there. So let me put up.
I would just propose to create a complete list here.
Yes.
Because it should be some overview, yeah. So I just created the ones which we are actively using, but of course we can extend this list because it will be like mainly the copy-paste job. And we of course will reuse the same containers for different languages all over again, right?
Yeah, yeah, I can take an action point and do that.
That one also aspect of the security checking is also like a hard aspect is to check libraries as well, especially third-party libraries, because there is a way actually to inject backdoors, at least in Go. I'm not sure about other languages, but in Go you can also inject backdoors with the third-party libraries that you maybe not intentionally using, but this can be like in the libraries, in the tree of libraries, right? So you can use library A, which uses library B, which is executing this insecure code. And of course, this will be quite a big security leak. But unfortunately, those bugs or those problems is very hard to test or very hard to discover. So this is also still, this problem is still under investigation, how we can efficiently find such problems and of course also like provide secure code in this way. But I guess it could be also the same problem in other languages as well. Maybe someone from you know about this problem or can give some hints. This will be of course helpful, yeah, for me.
Just a question. When you talk about updating Docker containers or Docker files, are you building are you building a container that contains this tool so that we can run it on the repos, or are you talking about making it part of the build process?
No, it's a Docker container which is used only for security checking. So this container will be built with up-to-date tool version, and then later in the CI pipeline it will be fetched, and then of course we will mount the source code into this container and then run with the Docker exec or Docker run command this security check and of course output the results. This is the implementation details. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It looks like you've gone where I was talking about. There's a repo for those tools already for vOLTHA, so we should try to continue using that.
Yeah.
Good.
That was precisely my suggestion to Andrei too, which is include any other Docker file in this repo here, and in particular here. And I think that, for example, the Golang CLI lint, this is where you would have to enable. Sorry, in here you would have.
I believe you'd have to enable that per repo that's using it, but yes, that's where it's built.
Yeah, this is where it's built, and then you would have to enable it when you run it, yes. And the run is up in our CI management repo, so we can take care of that as soon as that appears. But if any change is needed, for example, to include more tools, you would have to or either change this one or change this one. This is the place, and if you have to do anything related to Python, it might also be this one, and might also be here. So just remember this repo. Thanks, Kent.
Marvin, we also enable just the plugin, right? As far as I understand.
So for Maven, yes, I wouldn't go into these Docker files. I wouldn't go into these Docker files. What I would do is instead For example, let's take the Kafka Onos one is the first one I see here. You would probably have to include something in
some target here, right? Yeah.
In the build things in the pom.xml.
Okay. So the implementation is pretty clear to me. So there is no problem with that. So the only issue that, as I mentioned, I see only in these third-party libraries that it's very hard to control.
Yeah, what I think we can do there is that we can start with checking our code and checking what we can do and what we have very much under control. And then let's take it one step further. I do believe that the main libraries that we use already have a check for themselves. But I think we can go in steps and see in the future what happens, I guess.
Yes.
If there is anything. Okay. There was a question last time on how much overlap this is with existing tools. I believe that as we have outlined it, it is not that much of an overlap. It's just adding a few things on top of existing checks that will be run on a per patch basis. Is that correct understanding, Andrei? It's just adding stuff?
So I'm not sure about the sense of this question, honestly, because for the existing tools we have for Golang, for example, we have a wrapper, yeah, for different linters, and all we need to do is just to enable another linter inside of this like, I don't know, this big one, let's say, and then the security check will be executed as a part of the whole process, right, of this wrapper, because you trigger the wrapper and then you say, okay, please use those tools. You can do it either at runtime or you can provide a config where those tools are enabled, and then it will be triggered also including the security check. For Bandit, I'm not sure. I need to investigate that, how it should be working, how it should be enabled. And for Marvin, as you have seen, it's just like another plugin build step and so on. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think this is great. Just keep us posted on where things are at and when you start to do the work. I expect patches to be upcoming on Gerrit. Please add the relative people to it, myself, Kent, David, the usual suspects, I guess, on them for it to be checked and merged. I think this is an effort for 2.5, correct? You want this in the 2.5 release?
You ask me or?
Yeah, I'm asking you, Manuel, everybody who started the discussion around this.
Yes, because those tools, yes, they will be enabled in our like shadow copies of their repositories. But of course, it would be also helpful to upstream the changes. Sure. So the next release, yeah, is definitely a way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, I will confirm that. Sorry, I took a time to get off mute. Yes, so having that in 2.5 would be the goal.
Okay. And when we say enabled, we mean that the repos passed enforce checking.
I think, Andrea, right, you may comment with more details, but our intent was first to activate so that the checks get, so the reports get generated. Right now, that would not need necessarily to be a blocking point for merges. So it's just, first of all, in a reporting mode, and then later on, it could be more strictly enforced.
So I would say for 2.5, it should be soft, right? Soft reporting or soft fail. and then for later release should be then enforced, right?
Yes.
My personal opinion would be that when we enable it, we'll want to enforce it the same way we do with the others, so that patches can be merged unless they pass it. Now that means that whoever's making these changes initially will have to fix the security issues once, but then we could just enforce it moving forward. I think that might be a cleaner way to do it. I don't know if we have a system in place to run the checks without failing Jenkins.
Yeah, in Jenkins you can run tests that are set as non-blocking, so they'll just report a yellow build without giving a -1 to Jenkins. But I agree that if we only send the alert, then things will get out of sync pretty quickly. We can do a few runs without enforcing it to see where we stand and get an idea of how much work will it be to enforce these standards, because honestly I have no idea what the outcome will be. I don't think we ever run anything like this on our code base.
Yeah, no, OpenStack uses Bandit to do their Jenkins blocking checks. So you might be able to look at how some of their stuff works with respect to Python and Bandit.
Yeah, I would probably agree with Matteo about this and with Kent. I like activating them in a standby mode, reporting mode, and see how much the work is. And if we see that it's a lot of work, then we can think about it and make a plan on how to fix it. But if it's few minor things, might as well fix them, have like 5 patches that will go in, and then we activate these checks. They will pass and we will enforce from there on. Again, depends on how much is the work, but if it's not like an incredible amount of work, I would 2-3 runs to check what's needed and then just make those changes and enforce it. And I would go for 2.5. I wouldn't move it to 2.6 because that 2.6 is like, what, 5 months down the line. So might as well do it in the next 2. What are your thoughts?
I think that makes sense overall. I think the easiest thing is for assume that we will just enable them outright and enforce them outright. And if it turns out to be a lot of work, then we can reconvene and discuss.
Sounds good. Okay. Perfect. Anything else on this topic? I think we covered it pretty well, and we had the elements that we need for the reply team and Andrei to continue forward on this. Anything else on this? No? Okay, then if not, those were my 2 topics on the agenda for today. But I want to open the floor and see if anybody has anything else that they want to talk about while the team is in the meeting. I know we are postponing some of major discussions of things after a 2.4 release, and some topics were moved to 2.5. But hopefully that's going to get done in the next few days, so we'll have our hands free to do more of more features and more things that we moved out of 2.4. But you guys have any other topic that you want to bring up to the meeting?
So since we have time, I just wanted to throw it there that yesterday I pushed a patch to reorganize a little bit the documentation of vOLTHA. It's up in Gerrit for reviews, so if people want to take a look, that would be appreciated. Basically, I noticed that it was a little hard to follow a flow to set up a pod, and I tried to work on that. It's still not perfect, but hopefully someone that is new and is coming into the project will have an easier life in setting up the environment. I can link the patch in the document.
Yeah, I was just about to do something if I manage to do it. There it is.
I added it.
Okay, thanks, Matteo. And this is the patch that got pulled by myself, rebuilt, and mainly what changes is around here, thanks to Matteo, around the deployment environment, the operator workflow, which explains what the operator workflow is. So just please do take a look at this that Matteo put in here. My suggestion would be to pull the patch. Sorry, to pull the patch and do a make HTML, which is the command that does put a complete build of the documents in your local environment. And as you can see here, this is my location of the vOLTHA docs. And you can actually open it up. It gives you the HTML file and you can just browse through it and read through it in a much better, nicer way than just looking at the patch. So if you have some time, please do take a look at it, do review it. We do plan to get this done before the release of 2.4 because we recognize that the documentation was not really up to date. On the same topic, I am actually in the process, it's not yet done, it's partially done, updating some information that was stale, and thanks to Manuel that brought this up. So if you go here now, this page, I added a link to the docs. I updated the key TST people, and I'm in the process of updating the brigades and the release notes. So just if you have anything else that you would like to see in that wiki page, just please do have any comments are more than welcome.
And that's the release notes for 2.4, right? Or, yeah.
The release notes for 2.4 are not yet out.
Okay.
We are working on them. It's myself and the ONF team is working on them. We are going to send them out as soon as 2.4 gets released, as we have done for 2.3, and I will link them down here as soon as we have it.
Okay, sounds great.
July 2020 as target date. For now, not yet set. So, but please do take a look at the technical one from Matteo too, which is this one.
Is there a proposed set of features being added for 2.5 somewhere? Is that
2.5 roadmap? That is,
yeah.
There is. It's not precisely around 2.5. It's the best thing that we have is the MVP 2.0. Planning doc that was shared a few months ago. There's a lot of content in here, but mainly what this is the collected MVP 2.0 requirements. It doesn't mean that it will be in 2.5. It doesn't mean that it will be in 2.6. It might be even later than that, but this gives you an idea on what we are working on. I can ask, and we can discuss internally, especially with Surf, on explicitly a 2.5 roadmap. I know that he wanted to put the multi-NNI and lag in there, and we're probably going to target some software upgrade capability, both for the ONU and for vOLTHA itself. But these are just very loose topics. I don't have a written down exact list, but do take a look at this document. It's under the drive, and roughly, this is the stuff that we need to work on. Also the memory and sizing, we already started that. So around these topics is what we will work on 2.5. But I'll bring it up with the team, and maybe we can put down a small list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And if I can, I'll try and link it here. Okay, great. So thanks for bringing the documentation organization up, Matteo. I think this is a very valid effort, and I think it's something that needed to be done. And thanks for taking that on. Again, I expect this to be merged, and as usual, you guys will see the release notes of 2.4 down below here. So we will have that included here, as we have done for 2.3, which is this one. We'll have this done as soon as possible. So just hold on. As soon as we release it, we'll have all these things included. Perfect. Okay. Thanks, Matteo. Any other topic that anybody wants to bring up? Okay, then if not, we'll get some time back to start working on the things we need to do and the JIRAs we have. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next week, and please do continue working on Slack and keeping in touch on the different brigade channels and things like this. Have also a very good week. Cheers, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye now.